Dr. Jeanne Retief is a skincare creator and FIGGI founder. When Jeanne turned 35, she experienced great change, contemplation, confusion, frustration, and joy. She invested so much of her energy in becoming an expert in her field, but realized that the career she had built with a single-minded focus no longer fulfilled or inspired her. It was a confusing and frightening realization. Facing a health and soul crisis, she decided to make a big change. She integrated her human rights background into FIGGI, which allowed her to seek serenity and still experience the adrenaline rush of creating something new. This is what FIGGI is to her. It is her best life. It is her FIGGI life. FIGGI is for every woman like her who has struggled, achieved, and still seeks professional and personal purpose. FIGGI offers community, truth, a shoulder to cry on, and products to help you elevate your self-care experience. I'm so excited today. I'm joined by Dr. Jeanne Retief. We are going to be having an incredible conversation, I believe, about all of her background and her incredible brand. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you. Now, for people who are maybe unfamiliar with you and your background, if you wouldn't mind, how did you come to beauty and skincare?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a strange story if you look at it from the outside, because
Can't
my
wait.
my PhD is in international criminal law and human rights. So I owned and founded a human rights consultancy that I ran for almost 15 years. But I was diagnosed with panic disorder, and I severely mismanaged that diagnosis. And many other things kind of culminated in this one spot in my life that I call the breaking. And that led me to skincare and founding FIGGI.
Wow. That is a lot to unpack. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I mean, I think that oftentimes people are maybe not as forthright about origin stories, but that'll do it. If you wouldn't mind, not to make light of a very serious situation, how did FIGGI come to be? Had you always been interested in skincare and beauty as you were pursuing a sort of legal career, or this
Yeah.
was a totally new thing? I'd love to understand more.
So yeah, I've always loved skincare, and it was something that always brought me a little bit of peace. But when I was going through this period of the breaking, we had also immigrated to a new country, and I had new water, new food, new weather. And a lot of people think that a panic disorder diagnosis is just about the panic attack, but it's everything surrounding that. And it has an incredible impact on your skin. And I've always had sensitive skin, but since my diagnosis, it's been really bad because your cortisol levels are so high all the time. And that sends like all of this blood rushing to your nervous system, to that layer of skin just underneath your first layer. So you always feel so uncomfortable and like you're burning and itching and scratching. And I just wanted something small to just go right again. And I thought, okay, you know what? I can do skincare. And I went back and did my certificate in cosmetic chemistry and created this line.
That is so incredible. You say it with such sort of nonchalance, but that's quite an accomplishment. Really, just from your perspective, what was that like in terms of career shift? Very serious, sort of formal situation. Not that, I mean, certainly chemistry is also incredibly formal. So, what was this like in terms of this new world?
It was really eye-opening to me because in the old world where I was coming from, I was dealing with a lot of secondary trauma and also my own childhood trauma. And I felt like I was really good at helping people and making the situations better, but I was constantly being barred by the diplomacy and the politics and the bureaucracy. And I knew how to do this, but I was just having these barriers in front of me all the time. And then I thought, you know what? I work with so many women that feel like I do, that have nowhere to go and that don't know what to say and how to say it. And I can just do this myself, my own way, without being halted by all the people that telling me there isn't a budget, this isn't in line with what we're doing. Like, I can just hold this space for them. And that's how I decided to do this. But it was really difficult for me because I hid my panic disorder diagnosis for a very long time. I
Mm.
had a lot of shame about that because that doesn't fit into a professional environment. So it was difficult to build Figgy and to have to be so open
Mm.
about my story and sharing it in like podcasts and blogs. It
Like you're
was
doing
a
right now. Yep.
very, yeah, it was a difficult adjustment, but it became a cathartic experience for
Ugh.
me.
Ugh, well, I do love that aspect for you. Perhaps not the other bits, but do certainly appreciate that this has been transformative in that way. And it's obviously led to something incredible, which is the brand. So if you wouldn't mind, we nerd out on this podcast, forgive the English phrasing,
Yeah.
about like the branding aspects and all of the consideration that goes into bringing a brand into existence. So how did you settle on the name, the colors? Like, tell us everything, because it's such a fun thing to do, to build a brand.
Thank you. So I love figs. They are my favorite fruit. And I was just playing around with the idea of what, if I'm going to do this, what would I name it? What would it be? What would send the
Mhm.
message? And my mind just played around with this word figgy. And when I did like deeper research about the meaning and the representation and symbolism of a fig, it was really feminine power and recognizing that we're all a community and we should be as one. And that was my goal for Figgy. And I just thought divine intervention, this is definitely what it should be.
Oh, I love that story. Such a powerful thing that comes up when we're talking about these symbols. So then tell us about sort of how that translated into your approach to formulation. You had mentioned having sensitive skin in addition to the
Yeah.
panic disorder. Would love to hear that because I think that represents something that's quite unique about the brand.
Yeah, I really wanted to create something that I felt worked for me because I think I was just in such a stage of confusion and demotivation. So when I set out to do this, I was really actually quite selfish because I was just thinking about what's going to make my skin feel better
Mm-hmm.
right now. And a key ingredient in all the products that I've loved since I was 15 is Rooibos tea. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
I
sometimes
actually
they call
have.
it
This is because I've got a
really.
friend who's from South Africa, and so I've got familiarity, but people may not. So if you wouldn't mind, break it down for us.
Yeah. You can also call it red bush tea, but it's not actually a tea because it's not from the Camellia sinensis plant. It's a herb actually. So you're drinking a herbal brew, and it only grows in a really small mountainous area in South Africa. And it has crazy scientific research behind it, like really legitimate years and years and years of study. And what makes it so special is there's no other plant like it, and their polyphenol structure is so unique, which makes its antioxidant structure so unique. And people have tried to replicate it and plant it in other places. I think France was one. And then the entire structure of it changes, and it's not as unique and amazing and brilliant as it is when it grows right there in that small little spot in South Africa. So we use that green rooibos extract in all of the formulations. And the reason why we do that is because it has such amazing scientific proof to be an anti-inflammatory,
Mm.
to be an antimicrobial, antifungal, but it has really, like I said, unique antioxidant properties as well. So it helps your skin with other things that may be really irritating for sensitive skin. So it
Mm.
helps boost the efficacy of your sunscreen. It helps with other products to just not make it feel so harsh. But the real beauty of it is how incredible it is at soothing and calming your skin.
Oh, well, I mean, you've sold me. I was just going to ask, well, why does anybody care about what the antioxidants do? Obviously, we hear about it a lot. A lot of marketing is around there's antioxidants, but you've done a
Yeah.
beautiful job of making it relevant. Tell us about the product offerings then, because you mentioned this formulation is in a few products. So what are those products?
Yeah. So it's a really minimalist approach because if you have sensitive skin like me, the first thing you need to do is just cut out everything that you can and just
Hmm.
kind of stick to the basics. So I do not cleanse in the mornings because it's too much for my skin. I only wash
Sure.
with water or Rooibos tea. And then we have an antioxidant enriched day cream that you can apply underneath your sunscreen, and it works on your skin tone. It has Rooibos. It's got a great combination of antioxidants because we combined it with green algae and vitamin E to really boost that antioxidant property and help your sunscreen. And we put some really beautiful moisturizing and hydrating agents in there to keep your skin glowing all day. Because if you have dry, sensitive skin like me, you kind of lose that during the
Hmm.
day. And then the nighttime routine is like the it routine. It's a double cleanse, a oil balm cleanser first with a gentle gel cleanser second, and then a super rich moisturizing cream for the night that works beautifully under a slug, uh, whatever you choose to slug with. But that's it. That's like the routine, just getting back to basics. The whole point is to get your skin back to a good space before you try to do anything else.
I mean, the way that you're describing it makes it sound like a dream. The basics, and sometimes that's all you need, particularly when you've got sort of other things going on in your life. As you talked about, this is a minimalist offering, which can be just the thing that one needs.
Yeah.
What is your favorite product from the line?
Oh my word. I think I would have to say that I really love the double cleanse
Mm.
because, and I, I mean, I disapproved that formulation so many times because I really wanted it to work together beautifully because I believe in a double cleanse, but I have problems with it because it strips my skin of its natural oils because
Mhm.
so many cleansers are so harsh. And we used such gentle surfactants, those little ingredients that pull the dirt from your skin. And we made sure that it's so hydrating and moisturizing. So the first balm cleanse really, really removes your makeup instantly, which is awesome. So no like rubbing and scrubbing. And the second one to just get all of that remaining dirt off, and your skin feels so soft and so smooth. And it's just such a welcoming experience for me because usually my skin feels like 10 sizes too small after
Mm.
cleansing. So I really do love the double cleanse.
Well, again, I'm sold. These are all things now that I'm very interested in trying for myself, and I don't have terribly sensitive skin. But I do want to ask, I mean, you had mentioned the first thing that maybe people with sensitive skin ought to consider doing is cutting out all of the stuff that
Mm.
doesn't work. So again, you've been through this process. This is how you've brought Figgy to life. What other advice do you have for people that are suffering with sensitive skin, particularly in the face?
I think the big thing is really to go back to the basics. And the hardest thing for me with sensitive skin is, the beauty industry and just life in general and society is like, oh, you always want to look your best. And you see all of these beautiful ingredients that can help fight wrinkles and
Mhm,
pigmentation and all of
mhm.
that. But the reality for us with sensitive skin is your skin can't tolerate it. And I mean, one of the golden standards in antioxidants is probably vitamin C. And that's why I created the Figgy Day Cream, because my skin can't tolerate vitamin C because in a
Mm.
lot of formulations, it's too high. The
Yep.
concentration is way too
Mhm.
high for me. So it's a wonderful ingredient, but it causes me such pain, and it's the same with retinol. Retinol can be really harsh for sensitive skin. So if you're going through a flare up, my go-to is always like the 3-point rule. First, cancel out everything except the basics. Check if it's not in the water, because a lot of times it may be when you're traveling or there's something going on with the municipal water or something, and I
Mhm.
switch over to washing with Rooibos tea. And the third is just to be aware of my anxiety disorder and my lifestyle at that moment. Have I been stressing more than usual? Am I maybe having a panic flare up? Because that's definitely going to cause an issue. Am I having some hormone issues? So those are usually the three things I go to first.
That's such an easy thing to think about. So again, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that people out there can take note that it's easy to take stock of three simple things.
Yeah.
As regards the water, you've brought it up a few times, and this has been said on the podcast previously. Um, People tend not to think about that being a contributing factor to, skin flare-ups. Why might that be the case? What would be in municipal water that could cause irritation to someone who's got sensitive skin?
Gosh, I'm not a water expert, but I know, when often you would hear people say that they have hard water
Hard and
or
soft. Yep. Yeah.
yeah. So it's now I'm thinking about it in my native language, Afrikaans, and I'm not getting the word in English, but it's the chalk in the water, the
Yeah.
white
Yeah.
stuff, right? So that makes the water really harsh and super drying. And the last thing you want for sensitive skin is to dry it out even more, or to add any higher level of like salt or saltiness. So maybe even salt water. A lot of pools have salt water these
Mhm.
days, and you would find that your skin feels really bad afterwards. So I think that's what really makes the difference, because even now when I travel within Portugal from the south part to the north part, and I take a shower, like my hair feels different, my skin is immediately upset.
Mhm.
So it really makes a difference, because we at home we use the borehole water, so we don't use municipal water, and I feel a huge difference in my
Mm,
skin. I
mm.
immediately know when the water has changed.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Certainly not a water expert. That's just fine. But I do think that it's important to say I've experienced a very similar situation being in the state of California in the States, between the North and the South. Similarly, the water,
Mm.
there's all sorts of stuff going on. Um, Before we move into more general topics about entrepreneurship, which I really am curious about, I'd love to understand, where can people find Figgy? This is the point. We want to make sure people are walking away knowing the website, the social. If you wouldn't mind, let's lay it out there.
Oh, thank you. So the best way is probably to go to figgilife.com, FIGGI life.com, because there you will find a podcast, a blog, and a link to the shop, the online store. If you want to go directly to the online store, you can go figgy.eu. And yeah, our Sensi Soul, the regimen was sold out. So I'm so happy it's finally back in
Congrats.
stock. So
Also, congrats.
it is there to buy. So that's the best place where you can find us.
Amazing. And we'll include everything in the show notes to make it nice and easy for the listeners, but did just want to make sure that you could drop those links. It makes it easier for
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You've mentioned now a few times a podcast. What do we got going on? What are you talking about on this podcast? Obviously you're here with us today, but you're going and doing other things elsewhere. Let's hear about it.
So it's the My FIGGI Life podcast. And the whole point of this podcast is just for other women like me, high achievers, professionals that are just trying their best and still want like purpose in their lives, but they need a space where they don't have to think about how to advise and don't have to be okay. So I talk a lot about my experiences in business. I share a lot about my anxiety disorder and how you can help those that have an anxiety disorder.
Mhm.
We have doctors that come on the podcast and help us talk about women's health and how we can better look after ourselves. We talk a lot about spiritual coaching and mentoring, really just everything that you can find a safe space in for 30 minutes every week.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like such a pleasure. Would you mind dropping the name? And where could people access it?
Yeah, it's the My FIGGI Life podcast, and you can access it on any audio streaming service that you prefer.
The dream. Now, let's talk, entrepreneurship. You would come from a legal background, working in a very serious, as you mentioned, fraught field with lots of emotions and barriers, to something which also is quite fraught and lots of barriers. What are some challenges that you experienced along the way, as a woman entrepreneur, specifically within skincare and beauty?
The thing for me is just that I think I was lucky because this was not my first entrepreneurial journey, because I had built the consultancy
Mhm.
in a very male dominated industry. Um, but for me personally, I haven't really, it's difficult for me to speak about something from like purely a woman's perspective, because
Sure.
I think that's how it's how you perceive it or how you see it or how you experience it. And I've been very lucky to not have perhaps the same challenges, because I've worked with really wonderful men in my career, and that have given me beautiful opportunities, and beautiful people. But challenges for me in the skin and beauty industry is just, it was because I needed to create a space where people could come to, where it's okay not to be okay,
Mm.
and where you can have the secret or sacred space to just be who you are. And the beauty industry is all about being what you're not. So I think when I started Figgy, there was this kind of maybe this idea of like, what the hell is she doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is so wrong. Everything about this is wrong, because not only am I like not like advertising it ingredients or massive like product lines, I'm saying life happens and there's no secret to happiness, and I'm tired of how to advise, and I'm demotivated by self-care. So that, I think, has been a challenge. And
Mm.
what came with that was having to share so much. And I'm a deeply private person. So that has been definitely an experience for me.
I can truly only imagine. I'm not in this position by choice. I appreciate the struggle in terms of what one has to do to build a brand in this day and age. So much is required of the founder. A lot of, as you've said, sharing, whether or not one wants to. It's really often not a choice anymore. It's demanded of brands in terms of what I want as a consumer. Uh, so, any specific challenges or hiccups that you experience you might want to share in the service of helping others that are maybe in a position of wanting to start their own brand or thinking about innovation or changing things up for themselves?
Yeah. So, for me, a really big challenge that I didn't expect, just to be real from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So, I did not have angel investments and all of these things behind
Hmm.
me. I built this from the ground up myself. I took money away from my family, from the consultancy that I left behind. So you really don't have the budget to appoint this team of experts that
Hmm.
know everything, so you're trying your best to learn. And I did okay with most things because I had experience in some of that, but marketing just completely derailed me. I
Mm.
mean, it's been such a challenge for me. And I also came from a background in human rights where it was really frowned upon to be on social media, because we're
Hmm.
dealing with a lot of sensitive content. So when I'm saying I didn't even know how to create an account on Instagram, I'm really not lying. Like, and it's been an uphill battle. It's really been difficult. And I'm trying my best, and I've gone through a really bad time with people that I don't think I've made the right decisions with because of a lack of education on my part. But I have beautiful people assisting me now, and I'm so blessed to have met them, and I'm so grateful for their kindness, because this is definitely not my field of expertise. And I was, marketing is important, but for such a product-based business in this day and age, like, it's crucial. And I never in my life imagined there to be things as complicated as an Instagram algorithm or Facebook likes. And it really, it's been hard.
Well, again, I appreciate the candor, and I know that our listeners too. The whole thing can be crazy making. So it's validating to hear someone say, like, I've had this experience. If you're experiencing something similar, you're definitely not alone. Also, the notion of keeping this self-funded, controversial. Certainly, you allow a lot of control in the end, which is great. There's a lot of controversy around angel investments and VC. So, I mean, it's really like picking
Mm.
poison. And so appreciate very much you talking about your experience with that. Um, any changes that you would hope to see for the beauty and skincare space? I mean, your line, for example, much more sort of holistic, looking at the bigger picture of what's happening with the complete person and then product offerings to help them on their journey. That's not always what the skincare and beauty industry is about. Oftentimes it's telling someone what they are, and then you've got a product for that thing. What are your thoughts? I mean, where are you hoping that the industry is going, or changes that need to be made still that you see need to happen?
I mean, for me, I think I would just hope that we would get to a point where we can respect the consumer as an intelligent individual capable of making their own decisions, because, you know, it's good to have information out there, and we live in an age of information, but there's so much just wrong information about wonderful ingredients and products, and, brand bashing and smashing. And the point is just like, beauty, I think, is one of the most personal experiences. You don't experience it the way that I do, and my skin doesn't react the way that yours does. Just because I need to avoid fragrance doesn't mean you don't have to smell like a bouquet. A fragrance isn't bad for everybody. So, I mean, but I think we've gone into a space where deceptive marketing and telling stories in a way that makes the consumer want to do something that they probably would not always have done, or think about something they probably would not have thought of as such, has reached such a level where it's just so confusing. And like I say, consumers are intelligent individuals capable of making their own choices. So give them the right information and let them decide.
Yeah, if only everyone felt similarly in this space. I think that it's well put. I similarly am just so put off by, as you mentioned, the deceptive tactics, providing people with factual, accurate information and letting them make decisions really ought to be the way that we go about doing things. Certainly, that's not the case in the general sense. So glad to hear that you're championing this, however.
Probably not the best marketing pitch ever.
I mean, but ultimately it is. I mean, this is, important to you. And there's so many millions of people out there that feel strongly about this, that, want to make informed choices. But as you say, like, there's a lot of magic that goes into keeping people from making informed choices, or having them think that they have, when in fact they've done the opposite. And around we go. So I'd love to ask from your perspective, what's next? I mean, you've talked frankly about some of the challenges that you've experienced, and things in terms of marketing that have been a little bit more intensive than you'd maybe thought. But what's next for the brand? What's next for you?
So to be 100% honest, I
Please.
just 2.5 weeks ago, I had a pretty severe relapse in my panic disorder, because I was not taking care of myself. So my immediate next steps is getting back to a healthy space,
I love that.
and just understanding that this is where I need to be right now. For the brand, I am already working on a hydrating serum, especially for sensitive skin, especially if you can't tolerate things like the retinol and all of that, but you still want to have that little bit of indulgence.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited about that, but it's in the early stages, and we're still playing around with it, and it's going through all the claims tests. So that's where that is heading next.
Well, that is very, very exciting. I love the mindfulness that's being brought to all of these things. Again, something that's not true writ large, and is something that's valuable. So, and also, again, thank you for being so honest and open about the sort of personal aspect, which we're all humans. We all experience
Yeah.
things, and that's also something that we need to work on, whether good, whether bad, or just experience. So again,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're on the mend. Sorry that you
Thank
experienced
you.
that, but certainly very relatable. We've all been there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us, before we let you go, get into our quick takes. These are the questions that we ask of all of our guests, and we don't want you to think about it for too long, and we want to hear what you got to say. So the first question is, what is the first beauty or hair product that you remember having to have as a child?
A Rooibos kit. It was like, I think it was blue, but I was just, Rooibos is such a staple in a South African house, and my mom always loved skincare, and I saw this teenage range with Rooibos, and I was like, oh, I just have to have it.
I love it. And like, it's a through line. This is obviously something that is very important to you, and certainly part of Figgy. Love to see it. Are you superstitious at all? And if so, about what?
Yeah, super superstitious.
Okay. Anything in particular?
Everything. Don't break a mirror in the house. Don't open an umbrella. Don't walk under a ladder. Like
the classics, all of the good ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
My family has Irish roots, so it's pretty severe. Yeah.
I feel that. Who would play you in a biopic about your life?
I think maybe Piper Perabo, because people have told me I look like her.
I can see it. I mean, now that you say it, absolutely. I think she could have the chops. That could be fun. What do you consider to be the ultimate comfort food?
Pasta, any type of pasta, as much as I can possibly eat.
Wow. That's a perfect answer. I love that. Say that you are on a deserted island and you can only bring 3 products with you. Keeping in mind, food, sustenance, shelter, all of that is accounted for. So this is really a situation of you're fine, but what are the products? So you want to know, what are the things that you have to have with you when you're traveling somewhere, basically?
A beauty product?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so sunscreen, definitely, because yeah, that's really bad for my skin. Lip balm, I'm super addicted, and Vaseline, because it cures everything.
Easy. These are classics. We love to see it. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us and for participating in the quick takes. Before we let you go, one last time, if you could, where can we find you and Figgy? Let's let everybody know.
So you can go to figgilife.com, FIGGI life.com, and find the podcast, blog, and shop, or you can go directly to the shop at figgy.eu.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.